Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the classic Cobra Hiss tank, one of the most iconic vehicles that we ever get out of G.I. Joe. I know I've said it about a couple of the other ones, but these are very iconic, much like the Cobra Fang. You know, vehicles that we saw almost every episode whenever we watched G.I. Joe. Um, So, of course, the Cobra Hiss, standing for the High Speed Sentry, was first released in 1983. Um, was also sold in 1984 and discontinued, unfortunately, in 85. The Hiss was then available through mail order from 85 until 91. I keep wanting to say 90s, but back in the 80s. Okay, so it did have the Hiss driver. Um, And then we have some wonderful views here on Yojo. We have a nice front view. This has always been a big block here. It was just a simple mold. And we have our rear view, and then we get a nice side view. So we actually get to see a little bit better of this. And then, of course, our opposite side here, top. Some of the other wonderful views here, and so on. Nice box art. Now they do have this in the 1/6 scale. It is not a cheap thing. Um, I have noticed on Etsy, if you want to get some unofficial, um, people are selling them for about like 150, somewhere in that neighborhood, for 3D printed. I don't know exactly what it's like. I have not bought any of these. I think maybe at some point I might, but I have not done so as of yet. Um, but otherwise, HasLab has a very nice one. It does have electronics and other things, and they're going for a very good price. Now, I'm throwing this out here, and I'm just seeing a price point on this. Take it or leave it. You judge however you want to say. I think, honestly, they could take the old original design, scale it up, and probably sell it for 50, maybe even $70. And I'm just seeing a basic version, not the HasLab version, but just a basic 1/12 scale version. Um, and I'm sure that they would be flying off the shelves. Just being honest about it. Um, Being this nice iconic tank that we always had for Cobra, I think they could very well do it. Will they? I don't think so, but I think they very well could. Okay, so, um, and this is, like I've said before, this is usually where I get a lot of our information from. I'd usually look at like the schematics and all that stuff. So we do have, what is it, 80 millimeter cannons? Let's see here. So 90 millimeter. I think it says 90 millimeter twin cannons. Um, Of course, as I'm doing this, I'm doing it as like the cartoon version, so it's all the laser stuff, not actual cannons like what we would get out of the comic book. So, easily broken or lost pieces. The cannons can be elevated and held up by two tiny pins underneath, with the guns attached to the turret. If the pins break, then the guns will droop. They will not stay up when elevated. All right, so things that this was all featured and all that. So we did have Sunbow, of course, Marvel, Order of Battle. We have a battle file. So here, let's get a couple of these pictures here. Very iconic in the cartoon, um, and then of course in the comic book, and file cards, Order of Battle here. Then this is, I believe, a newer version. So here, weight is 9.75 tons. So this is a very lightweight um, tank here. Speed, it's going about 75 miles an hour. on the road, 60 miles an hour cross country. See, and I don't think I even had this on there when I was going through. So this is something else that's a little bit different now. Armament, it's saying twin 30 millimeter automatic cannons. So there again, things change as they change things around. Uh, One of the earliest contributions from the Destro-owned Mars organization, the Cobra to Cobra Command. The Cobra Hiss is an inexpensive and effective specialty tank utilizing modular technology which allows damaged parts to be quickly removed and repaired. This fast attack vehicle is a feared part of the Cobra arsenal, synonymous with the terrorist organization. Cobra Hiss tanks are operated in a pinch by nearly every troop and are a highly adaptable force to be reckoned with. Um, Kind of an interesting file card to see how they've updated it. Now, as we're going to see how things have changed. Now, this is the classic view, and I know that when they did the movies, they really changed it. And I think that file card kind of changes along with how it was redone in the movie series. So here, being the old original, here we are, 90 millimeter twin cannons. Um, and this is where I had my falling out with Renegade Studios doing G.I. Joe as a role playing game. And I think I've said it before. You know, you have 90 millimeter. I want to say I thought it was 80 millimeter, but 90 is fine. Um, but it only does one damage. Now you have to upgrade the weapon in order to get it to do more damage. And if you have a character that can take 3, 4, maybe 5 points of damage, you could take one of these to the chest and brush it off. It just didn't sit right with me. That's my take on it. Beyond that, the game did seem fairly decent. It's just how they had some of this stuff work kind of killed it for me. Now, for the people that play it and enjoy it, by all means, do so. This is just the hang up that I have. But I'm used to older games where you have a lot more hit points, things do more damage, um, and it's just me. So take that for what it is. I'm an old man at this point, and I'm just kind of used to things being done a little differently, which is fine. All right, so we do have this from the second series of the trading card game. And then, of course, this is from the G.I. Joe Monopoly. Okay, and then we have a micro vehicle, and this is from an old Commodore 64 G.I. Joe game. And I think it's the same game here. And then it is some of the upgraded stuff that people had done, which is very neat. Okay, and this was for the cartoon. So, as we look at this and we go through vehicle construction, uh, European red for the hyena, black hyena, and then Japan had their own version of it. Now we do see a slightly different. I don't know if I can. How much bigger? No, that doesn't really do it. I tried doing some of this before, but okay. So we have the Hiss. We have the Hiss 2, which then had 3 barrels on it and a troop compartment down below. So that was done in '89. Then we have a Hiss 3, which then brought it back to where it was. And in 2002, we have a Crimson version of it. Um, Here is another upgraded version of what it could be in 2002 for the Hiss 4, the Hiss 2B. Then we start just going with other variations of the Hiss tank here. Now here's a missile variant, which I think is what they were kind of doing with. Let's see, this is back in '05. When HasLab had kind of done theirs, they have missiles off on the side and all that stuff. So, and here's an Arctic version, and this is where they kind of changed everything for the movie, um, keeping how the tread is, but everything else has really been changed. You have one person here, and then this is more of a robotic turret. So trying to upgrade it to make it fit in today's more modern age, whether we liked it or not. And in some regards, I really wasn't a big fan of it, but I get the idea. We're trying to upgrade it so it looks more of what we can do today. Um, and here's a hiss attack scout. So it looks like a person's going to sit here. Of course, we have the treads going very close to whoever's sitting there, and a couple small cannons there. We have shockwave. So this is as a transformer. Oops. And then we go back to another hiss variant, and then back to the original. Okay. Now, taking this right back into our Star Wars kind of D6 view of this. Um, this is at speeder scale. It is a light tank, so I kind of left it at that. All right. One driver, one gunner. I don't have any passengers on here, although quite often we do see one or two people on the back. So maybe what we should do is, we'll just leave it off as this, as none. Cargo capacity, I do have 80 kilograms. We have full coverage. It is, of course, on the ground. Has a maneuverability of 2D. I did have it at the 75 miles an hour. I give it a body strength of 4D to really recognize that it is kind of beefed up here. And I have a twin blaster cannon. Of course, it's on a turret. This is at speeder scale, and it's doing 5D. So this being a 90 millimeter, I don't know if 5D would be really representative to that. Thinking about it, so what I'm going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to make it a 7D damage. At seeing it would have been a 90 millimeter. I'm really kind of basing this off of some of the other vehicles using the twin blaster cannon, but trying to look at it as this being what it is. Yeah, it's a light tank, but 90 millimeter. Yeah, we'll make it about a 7D. Okay, that way it would be a 5D against something that is Walker scale, and that's the reason why I'm kind of upping it a little bit. Now, with it being speeder scale, that puts it somewhere in the middle, so that means when it's trying to attack something that's at Walker scale, it'll have an easier time. And if we are trying to shoot at infantry or infantry-sized vehicles or something, it's going to have a harder time trying to track them. But that does take us roughly to about a nice, even kilter here. So we have things kind of work out pretty decent. I think that's a pretty good representation. Like I said, maybe the passengers, I don't know. And it's an amazing thing to look at it and say that now HasLab has their variation of this, and in their variant, they do have room for, I think, 4 people inside the HasLab version. Where in the original, that's all engine and ammo and all that stuff. So, you could take that however you want. If you wanted to add people in there, go for it. Otherwise, maybe not. Likewise, if you wanted to do this in the HasLab variation of it, because they do have a front cannon on the front, or underneath underneath the cockpit, and they also have some missile mounts on the sides. So then we could add like chin cannons. That would make those maybe anti-personnel. And the missiles, I would keep those maybe at speeder scale, or maybe knock those up to Walker scale and go from there. So, it's something you can do. It all depends on how you want to take this into, if you wanted to do this into like a Star Wars. I mean, remember The two scenarios that I can think of is you either have one, a Earth type planet that a ship has crash landed. We've gotten that technology. We're able to use that technology. That's where we're getting our blasters and all that from. Or two, and I came up with this one a little later on. If you're part of a Jedi general's force and they didn't want to have um, the clone troopers, or maybe they had some different stuff from a different area, and you could add it in that way. It's not being done by, oh shoot, was it Rothian or Rylar Industries? Um, if it wasn't being done by them, then maybe it's done by someone else for this group, and you're a smaller group or something like that. You know, these are two different scenarios. I think they would work very well. But of course, for me to bring this in, it all depends on how you want to run it. If you want to run it on your own world or bring it into the greater Star Wars universe, you could do it that way as well. Um, or possibly even, um, it got picked up and used for whatever. Um, if you were to sit here and say, even after the New Republic and the Empire, the old Empire areas, kind of get at peace with each other, um, or whatever. And if you want to say that this is someone that's making some of this stuff for them in your universe, or maybe it's part of the Sith Force. However you want to do it. I mean, you can easily port it over one way or the other. Um, it all depends on the storyline you want to kind of have here. Being a role playing game, you want to add a little element from this and from that. I mean, in the Lego series, we're seeing more mechs being brought in on stuff. So, it's not to say that we can't do some of this stuff. It could be an off camera thing. Um, however you want to do it, because this is your version of it. This isn't the official George Lucas version or the Disney version of whatever they want to make. This is your version. However, um, I could even see if someone wanted to, seeing that we're talking about a Star Wars, knock the treads off and make it a hover tank. So essentially, you wouldn't have this lower body and you would just have a hover tank here. That's a big possibility as well. But there again, it all depends on how you want to run it. So, everything is kind of open for interpretation if you wanted to bring it in. Uh, you know, I've just come up with the ideas, and we just kind of go from there. It doesn't mean that it has to stay this way, and maybe that's how we could bring it into a more modern era. Do we have something that seems sci-fi now, and it is kind of a hover tank of some sort? I don't know. Um, and you just kind of change how the bottom is. But that's my thoughts. These are ideas. Doesn't mean that this is how it's going to be. It's just ideas being thrown out there of how we could do this. So, with that being said, I hope you're enjoying the views that I have, trying to see how the toys are, how it kind of is, bringing it into a Star Wars universe or whatever else. You know, this is my take on it, to bring it into a Star Wars. Um, Hope you're enjoying this series. I enjoy bringing this to you. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you in the next video.